Good morning, Year 3. I have a question for you. Do you know why we learn grammar? It's an interesting question. Why do we learn grammar? Let me ask a few people. Hey, quick fire question. Why do we learn grammar?
So you can speak good words.
Okay, thanks. Mum, why do we have to learn grammar?
Why do we have to learn grammar? Because without grammar, the sentences and words won't make sense.
Do we need to learn grammar?
No,
Why not?
doesn't really help in the long term.
Dad, do you think we need to learn grammar?
Yes, absolutely.
Why?
Because that's the best way to give clear communication to other people.
The truth is, a lot of people argue every day in lots of academic circles about why we need to learn grammar. And there's lots of different arguments, but the one thing that I want us to think about today is how knowing grammar helps us to talk about the writing that we're reading, to analyse it, to evaluate if it's good or bad or what could be better. And then, once we've analysed it and looked for the good and the bad in the text, we can decide what parts of that writing we want to magpie for ourselves and implement into our own writing. Since we're working on a writing project this week, we need to be able to think about stories that we've read or writing that we've read and what's good about it, so that when we're trying to do good writing, we have some ideas of how to do it. So, what we're going to be doing today is practicing using our grammatical knowledge by analysing and talking about a text that we're reading, which is, of course, Evie in the Jungle. If this sounds a bit complicated to you, don't worry. I will be showing you some examples of how you can use your grammatical knowledge to talk about a text. And after that, you're going to have a go at practicing that for yourself. So without further ado, let's get ready for the lesson. Hopefully you have a pen and paper ready already. If you're in the Jade and Indigo group, you are again going to go and watch the Amber English video today because you're carrying on with your series of lessons for this week. So just click the link in the description box below or search up the Amber video for today's date, which is the 13th of May 2020. Everybody else, if you're not in the Jade and Indigo group, you know what to do. Write down the date and the LI. The LI for today is a bit of a longer one, so you might need to pause the video for some time. To use grammatical terminology to explain the grammar used in a piece of writing. So pause the video now and get that ready before you press play. So as I said, the first thing I'm going to do is talk to you about a piece of text that I'm reading and use my grammatical terminology to explain my analysis and explain my thoughts about the way that it's written. And since we've been working on Evie in the Jungle, I'm going to be reading the beginning bit of chapter 9 of Evie in the Jungle, which is right here. And it is called 4 Mosquitoes and a Poisoned Dart Frog. So hopefully you remember what's happened is Evie and Abigail Garcia, the professor, have been working together on a plan to raise money for Professor Abigail Garcia's charity, because they need some money to stop the loggers from ruining all the rainforest land. So they want to buy it back and look after it themselves. Evie has gone into the rainforest again to hunt down a jaguar that she wants to interview. Her idea is to interview all these animals, talking about why they're sad about their rainforest getting destroyed, put them on the website, which is currently quite boring, for the charity, and hopefully generate some interest from all these people that care about animals and persuade people to donate money to the charity. It's a great idea. And in this chapter, Evie goes through the forest and encounters a few different types of amazing creatures. So, here we have the title, 4 Mosquitoes and a Poisoned Dart Frog. Then we have the beginning of the text. It goes, Evie was hot and sweaty and had been bitten by 100 mosquitoes. Now, what do I notice about this intro to the chapter? Well, it starts off with a full but short sentence. Evie was hot. Then we have 2 other sentences that are very interesting. And sweaty. Is that really a whole sentence? If you think back to the work that we did on clauses and phrases, you'll know that and sweaty cannot actually be a sentence on its own, because a sentence needs to have an independent clause in it. And remember, an independent clause needs a subject and a verb. In this sentence, Anne sweaty, can you see a subject or a verb? No, you can't. So this is not actually an example of very correct writing. Why do we think then that the author has decided to write a bad sentence in his book? Doesn't that seem crazy? Evie was hot and sweaty. Even the next sentence, although it's not really a sentence, is missing something. And had been bitten by 100 mosquitoes. Well, it's got the verb, had been bitten, but it's not got a subject. We need something that says Evie had been bitten or she had been bitten. So even that next sentence is not really a sentence because it doesn't have a verb and a subject. So why did the author choose to write it this way? The only reason I can think of is that maybe he wanted to create some emphasis on these ideas because Evie was very bothered by them. By dividing up this one section, which should have been one long complex sentence, into short phrases, it adds emphasis. Evie was hot and sweaty and had been bitten by 100 mosquitoes. So what does this make me think? What's my analysis of this? Well, when I'm writing, I know that I shouldn't normally leave a sentence as a phrase without a verb or a subject because that's not correct. But it shows me that if I really want to add emphasis to something, I could do it. So I have to use it very carefully, only when I want to add emphasis. As you're reading this book, you might notice that Matt Haig often uses phrases as whole sentences when he shouldn't, and that's actually wrong. So he leaves out the independent clause that should be in the sentence. That's Matt Haig's style, but I don't particularly like it because it's not grammatically correct and it's quite jerky sometimes. Let's carry on in the story. The mosquitoes were still around her. Blood, said one. Give me blood. Now here I can see an example of direct speech. There's two speech clauses, blood and give me blood, and there's a reporting clause in the middle. Blood, said one. Give me blood. Over here, said another. This girl here, the best blood around. Oh yes, this is exquisite blood, said a third, biting into Evie's arm. So I think the speech clauses are done quite well. You can really sense that the mosquitoes are really obsessed with blood because they keep saying the word blood, and mosquitoes, that's what they do, they like to suck people's blood. But on reflection, I don't think his reporting clauses are as good as they could be because he's just said one, said another, said a third. Maybe it would have been better if he made his reporting clauses more interesting by using different words for said, which we did when we practiced direct speech a few weeks ago. So many flavours. I'm getting hints of blackberry and juniper. Give me some of that, said yet another, as Evie tried to swat it away. So that's interesting. I've noticed a conjunction. A lot of the sentences so far in this whole chapter have been very short sentences, so it has that rhythm, which is very jerky. Remember we talked about the fact that sometimes using conjunctions to make your sentences from simple sentences into complex sentences or compound sentences can make your writing flow more. Here I can see that Matt Haig has done that on purpose. He said, give me some of that, said another, as Evie tried to swat it away. So he's added the as, which is a conjunction, to make this into a compound clause. Oh no, quick, she is fast with her hands. Mayday, mayday. So what do I notice here? Well, I can see lots of exclamations. From this, I know that the mosquito is really worried. That was a good technique from Matt Haig to use exclamations to show the emotions of the mosquitoes when they get super worried because Evie's swatting them all around. You can see he's emphasised that again by using a phrase in all capital letters. Abort mission, repeat, abort mission! Get out of here, guys! So you've seen I've been using a lot of my grammatical terminology to talk about this text and give my thoughts and analysis on it. I've talked about clauses and phrases and sentences. I've talked about direct speech. I've talked about speech clauses, reporting clauses. I've talked about exclamations, that's a type of punctuation. I've talked about conjunctions. So without all these words, I wouldn't be able to give you all of that analysis and tell you my thoughts on the text. Because I've now done this analysis, when I'm doing my writing later on today, I'll have lots of ideas of how to make my writing really good. What else do I notice about this whole section overall? Well, I notice the use of a really powerful adjective. We've got the word exquisite here, which is a really cool adjective. A good description to show how much the mosquitoes like her blood. It's exquisite. It's not just good. It's not just all right. It's exquisite. So we're going to carry on to the next page. This is the page that you're going to be working on for your own analysis. You're going to be reading through this text and you're going to have a look at finding a few different types of grammatical things in the text. And I've given you some prompts to help you. Let's have a look at what kind of things you need to be looking for in the text, and we'll read through the text and then I'll give you some time to pause the video and have a go at finding all the different bits that you need to for your own analysis. Okay, so on this side of the screen is what your task looks like if you've downloaded it from the Grange School website. If you haven't downloaded it, don't worry, it's all up here on the screen now. And if you scroll up on your worksheet, it actually has the bit of the text that is already on my Kindle screen on the left, so I've copied and pasted it for you. But if you're just doing your work from the video, you can look at the text on this side of me. So it says from the text section of the text above, over here, find a word containing a prefix, an adverb, a conjunction, a speech clause, a reporting clause, a word with an apostrophe, a preposition, a phrase inside a sentence, a bad sentence which does not contain an independent clause. So a bad sentence would be like the one we had on this page where it said "and sweaty" and had been bitten by 100 mosquitoes. So we talked about how that's not really a grammatically correct sentence, it's quite a bad sentence because there's no verb or subject. So it doesn't have an independent clause in it. So that's what question 9 means. And question 10, you can see there's a little star there because it's a challenge. It's a very tricky one, but I want you to find a sentence containing a subordinate clause. If you don't know what any of these terms mean, you can have a look at the knowledge organizer, which is also on the Grange School website, which has some definitions of these things. But hopefully you should remember most of this stuff from the grammar lessons we've been doing this term so far. So all I'm going to do is read the text to you once, and as you're going through, have a think, can you see any of these things that are on this list? And then you need to pause the video and do some close analysis, really look at each word in the text and think about finding each one of these 10 things in the text, and that's your task for today. So let me read it to you. The humans had walked for miles, deep into what was now most definitely jungle, the Monkeylands. Evie, her dad, Professor Garcia, and 2 local trackers who led the way armed with infinite knowledge and machetes they used to cut through the undergrowth. Evie gazed up at the sky, but could hardly see it, as it was lost beneath a thick canopy of trees. She looked at the ground and saw beautiful star-shaped white Amazon lilies. "This is one of the very deadliest parts of the jungle," said Pilo, the tracker in front, smiling as if the deadliest part of the jungle was kind of fun. "Look, right there!" He pointed at a bright yellow frog sitting quietly on a leaf. Evie knew exactly what type of frog this was. She'd had a memory dream about a similar frog many times. When she had been a little child with her parents living in the Amazon, she had apparently seen many of them. So that's the text. If it would help you, you can get the text up on your own Kindle or your own laptop at home. Otherwise, just have a look at this screen here, read through that bit of the text, and find a word containing a prefix, an adverb, a conjunction, a speech clause, a reporting clause, a word with an apostrophe, a preposition, a phrase inside a sentence, a bad sentence which does not contain an independent clause, and a sentence containing a subordinate clause. And make sure you write out your questions 1 to 10. Write the question, so write a word containing a prefix, do a colon, and then write whichever word you find. So now you've heard the story once, it's time for you to go back through and find each of the 10 things. Remember, when you're answering the questions, to write out the question alongside your answer. So for example, for number 1, you should write a word containing a prefix, and then next to it you should write your answer. If you want to look at this story on a Kindle instead, you can find this page at the beginning of chapter 9. Otherwise, just keep looking at the screen to find the answers, and pause the video now to complete your work. Anyone who sends in their work is eligible for a Ruby Award, and if it's really good work, you may even get a Sapphire or an Emerald.